Being recorded.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to RoboMQ's webinar this May. Today, we're going to be diving deep into a little bit of what you would see with Hire2Retire, get that general overview, give you a few slides beforehand to just give you a little bit of context before we dive into the product itself. Thank you so much for joining us today. Note that if you do have any questions throughout this entire thing, feel free to jump in either out loud or on the chat, whatever works best for you. Notably also, after this call, we will be sending over a recording and you'll have our contact information. So if this is something that does spark your interest or something that you feel would be beneficial to your company, let us know and we're happy to give you a more personalized demo workflow based on what your current HR system and identity management platform setup is. So the way we'll start today is shortly I'll be passing it on to our head of products, Bram, to give you some insight into Hire2Retire, after which I will show you guys a brief overview of the product itself. Again, feel free to jump in with questions at any point. We'll wrap it up and hand over our recording and our contact information. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Bram.
Thank you, Alexis, and thank you very much for joining this webinar. I will go over the product, the problem that we solve, and in a few minutes, Alexis will also get into the product and show you in detail how we do it. So guys, you guys are able to see my screen? Okay, perfect. So I'll jump into Hire2Retire, what it does. So Hire2Retire is an employee identity lifecycle management product. It falls in the category of lightweight IGA, which is identity governance and administration product. We have a very niche and focused product, and we solve the problem around lifecycle management. As many of us know, the real employee lifecycle starts in HR system. HR system is where people are hired, people have change of role, transitions happen, and they are terminated. So when these things happen or these changes happen in the HR system, how do we take that information and we convert that information into the identity, which means creating an identity account, giving email, giving access to systems, resources, and privilege within the identity system. And identity is very critical as now, right? Because privilege is what grants you access to systems and resources, which allows an employee to be able to do their work. At the same time, it also creates risk when somebody walks away with terminated access or the person who doesn't deserve a certain access or privilege gets it. That's called, in a security or identity lingo, we call it need-to-know basis access. What Hire2Retire does is automates the joiner, mover, or leaver process, as HR calls it, into the identity lifecycle, which is account creation or onboarding, offboarding, change of role, long-term leave, and how does employees' account, identity, their privilege, and access is transformed. We use HR system as source of truth. We connect with more than 26 HR and ATS systems. So whichever HR system you're using, you are well covered. We also integrate with Active Directory, Entra ID, Okta, and Google Workspace. So whichever IDP or most of the IDPs that you use, you are covered. And then I'm going to get into a little bit of the business process that we are trying to solve here. So joiner or onboarding, this is when somebody is starting in the organization. When it happens, what Hire2Retire will do is it will create the profile in the AD or Google Workspace or Okta. Email will be created, privileges or group membership will be assigned, and it will ensure that the org chart is always current. You show up in the GAL, people know when you walk in on the first day at work, who you are, what is your role, what is your privilege, what is your title, who do you report to. In addition to it, we are also able to integrate with all major service desk systems so that we can do asset provisioning, resource provisioning, as well as other activities that are triggered through the workflow automation. We do the similar activities when people move, people have a transition from one role to another, they take up new responsibility. We also support some complex scenarios like when you take up a new responsibility, say you move from marketing to sales, there's a period of transition in which you may be doing the marketing job as well as sales job while you're transitioning it out. So we ensure that your privileges reflected, which means for the period, say, choose 3 months or 6 months, you will have your marketing privileges available while you are on the sales role, because that is the one which you transition into. And we make sure that anything is needed around your org chart updates, your access, resources, everything is correct, and it is all in sync with the HR system. Similarly, when leaver scenario happens, we'll remove the access, timely termination happen, we ensure that nobody walks away with access beyond the termination date, so that we are able to ensure security and prevent data-related risk. We also have features which are built around compliance. So whenever any changes happen in the HR system and corresponding changes happen on the identity, on the privilege and access, a full change data capture is made, also called audit log, and we are able to transmit it to your BI system on S3, AWS, or relational databases, where you can say that I have a system which manages the employee identity lifecycle. At the same time, you have evidence to say you do it, which is what is essence of most of these SOC 2, ISO 27001, and compliance requirement around HIPAA and SOX. Now, getting a little more into the business process detail, this is how the employee lifecycle typically looks like. So on the left-hand side, you have new hire when they accept offer after the interviewing, recruiting, and all these things have happened, and finally they have signed the contract. What happens is, on the HR side, once somebody accepts an offer, they go into the onboarding stage, where the HR profile is created in the HR system, background check, drug test, I-9, new hire paperwork, which varies from organization to organization, is performed. What our product does is, with integration to applicant tracking system, onboarding platforms, or with the core HR system, allows creation of the identity profile, as well as being able to create requests for access provisioning, workspace allocation, other resources by integration with the service desk system. So what we do is, we basically allow IT a window of opportunity, so that IT can make sure that when the new hire joins the organization, he or she is ready to start working on the day one. He or she is not just coming in the organization not knowing who do they report to, their team not knowing who they are, they're not having an email account, they're not having access to the system that you need. So we do make sure the employee has a superior first day at work, as well as a new coming employee or new hire is ready to be productive on the day one. Now, if you don't have platform or system, or if you don't have these JML and identity lifecycle automated, what we typically see is that there's a poor first day at work experience, because somebody comes into the work and they're not really ready to do the work, because they have not been given the right access, privileges, and resources to do it. Also, in most of the companies, unless they have some platform like this work is done by either sysadmins, which are skilled resources, and this job is really boring and thankless job. They do it manually, or they have some kind of, library of PowerShell scripts or some scripting that they do to perform this job, and this is managed through a service desk ticket created by HR, then somebody is going to do the job and then let the HR know, and all of this is done manually. So there's a definitely a good cost saving, and what we have seen based on our customers, that most customers save between 60 to 70% of the cost or the return on investment. And then it also solves a big problem of cybersecurity, where access is timely removed, so that it does not expose company to security risk or data breaches, because most of the time it's the insider which have either the privilege which they shouldn't have, or the terminated employees who walk away with the access, which becomes a source of cybersecurity risk or data breaches. In summary, these are the 5 benefits of the integration that Hire2Retire does. Superior first day at work, employees ready to go. Sync between HR and IT systems, so that everything is in real-time sync between the HR system, where the employee profile is tied to their identity and privilege account. Role-based access control and access provisioning, making sure access is on need-to-know basis. And then resource provisioning and service desk integration for the workflow and resource assignment. And we do avoid security and compliance risk. There's a huge amount of cost saving on the employee onboarding process, but it varies from organization to organization depending upon whether it's fully manual or some kind of automation in place. So with that, I'll give it back to Alexis, and she can basically show you the product and really validate what I said is done and how it is done.
Thank you, Bram. I'll go ahead then and share my screen to the product. Okay, does everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Awesome. So what you're looking at here is what you would first see when you log into Hire2Retire. You can have an infinite number of workflows if you have different types of employees that require different onboarding and offboarding processes. For the case of this webinar, I'll go ahead to a typical situation we tend to see, which is ADP to hybrid. Now, first up is the overview page. This is really just the entire workflow in a nutshell. If you wanted to see what steps are being taken to automate at the onboarding process, at the offboarding process, you can just come here and see all of that on a single page. But the identity tab is where you make the bulk of those workflow decisions. So like Bram mentioned, we support a wide number of HR systems. If you see the HR system your company uses here, we already have native integration. If not, let us know because we are consistently adding to this with every feature release. As well as, of course, we support a number of ATS systems and variety of identity management platforms. So any of these combinations work for us. And once you do have those connections set up, next thing you would do is choose which attributes from your HR system you want to send over to Hire2Retire and sync to your Active Directory. So in this case, you'll see all of the attributes from ADP are already available here. That'll happen naturally when you make your connection. You can just go ahead and select the attributes of your choice. These are a few common ones we see with our customers. They're essentially the ones that you would want to use to either be synced to Active Directory or to organize your distribution lists, security groups, and so forth. Now, once you have chosen which attributes you're sending over to us, next step would be mapping it into Active Directory. So on the right here, you'll see a list of all of the attributes that you just selected in that previous step, and you can drag and drop them directly to that corresponding attribute. Notably, employee ID acts as a unique identifier, so it helps us know that John Smith from ADP is the same as John Smith in your Active Directory. And while you can just directly drag and drop, we do support data transformations modeled off of Excel. So you have all of these options available to you, and a typical use case we see is if they have a preferred name, use that. If not, use legal first name, last name. So once you do have everything mapped, next up, lifecycle business rules is where you really get in depth as to what aspects of your current process you want to automate. So if someone gets hired, we can go ahead, of course, create their account, their password. In the case of preboarding, we can also support having an account ready in a disabled state until their first day, in which case the account is now enabled, ready to go for that new hire's first day. But when it comes to profile updates, someone's getting promoted, they are married, so they're changing their name, or they're changing departments, locations, remote to in-office, that sort of thing. There might be the case where there's group membership changes and access and privilege changes. So the way that we handle that is you have a few options here, and our most popular by far is the first one, retain all groups not defined in group mapping automation. What this essentially means is if someone does change departments from, let's say, sales to marketing, we would go ahead and remove their sales access, give them their marketing access as determined by the rule sets on Hire2Retire. But if there's any ad hoc access given to them for some unique project that doesn't necessarily align with their job role, we leave it alone upon that change. So it's the most popular option because that does tend to happen internally. Now, when someone is leaving the company, there's a wide variety of features we can also support and automate as well, such as putting them in a certain OU. We support both scheduled and immediate termination. So in the case of a scheduled termination, 2 weeks from now, last day at 6 p.m., we know that, and we'll go ahead at 6 p.m. to automatically disable their account, remove their access, take them out of group memberships. All of those steps will happen automatically. And in the terms of immediate termination, the way this works is, let's say on ADP, for a termination reason, HR puts involuntary. As soon as we see that, regardless of their last day worked or whether they're still on the payroll, we'll go ahead with all those termination steps. Those mentioned include how you want to handle group memberships, such as removing them from all of them, removing directly assigned Microsoft licenses so you don't have any ghost employees. You can also share mailboxes and share OneDrive if that's something you currently do. This is very customizable in accordance with what you do today. So when you're working with us, we'll learn how you currently handle your processes and aid you in making that an actual workflow. In the case of leaves, sometimes you might have a standard process. If so, it tends to include disabling the user, putting them into a certain OU, or handling group memberships a certain way. That's all covered here. However, let's say that your long-term leave is handled on a more case-by-case basis at your company. No problem. You can always simply uncheck that box here and we won't handle it. And that's available for all of these options. Jumping down to group memberships, this tends to be one of the more manual and time-consuming tasks that's happening currently in companies until, ideally, you can manage it dynamically. So of those groups, we do support security groups, distribution lists, Microsoft 365 groups, mail-enabled security groups. And the way that it works is by rule sets. You can have as many of these rule sets as you would like, and we do support and/or logic here, using any of the attributes you selected from your HR system. So let's say someone gets promoted from HR associate to HR manager. When we see that change, we'll know that in this case, they keep one distribution list and we'll give them that manager distribution list. This sort of automation will just happen continuously as changes happen within the organization as they join or leave. And of course, we have default options for all of these groups. One other option that you can take advantage of if you prefer is, since this does tend to be a manual aspect right now and a little bit time consuming, we do have the option of this little AI feature, which what it does is it can look into your Active Directory, find any patterns that already exist, and offer them up to you as suggestions. Essentially, this will just help expedite your process and act as a crutch of sorts to getting all of this in place. And last step here is Communication Hub. So what this is essentially custom email-based data-rich templates that automatically send out at any of these lifecycle stages. So for example, someone's getting onboarded, and you just want to make sure that new hire has a welcome to your first day at work email. You select the operation of choice. It can be conditional, so the content differs based off whether they're remote or in office, based off their department. And of course, you can send it from your own email if that's your preference. As for the content, you can put whatever you would like in here, and you also can use any of these attributes on the side from either your HR system or your identity management platform to drag and drop and make this really specific for each person. So this is one case you might see, but a few other ones might be sharing the password with the manager, maybe resource provisioning for IT, where you say, hey, first name, last name is starting on start date. Please get them a laptop. Please get them a desk space. You can use this to have people acknowledge the company handbook. You can also use attachments, send links. All of that is possible here. So a lot of emails you might find yourself sending all the time right now might be able to be automated. Now moving over to the service desk portion, we support a number of ITSMs right now. If you see yours here, great, we natively integrate it. If not, let us know, because this is another one of those aspects we're constantly building based off of requests. And let's say that you do have a service desk such as Jira. You'll notice that it's pretty similar in terms of Communication Hub. The difference is there's a little bit more field level based mapping based off of each ITSM. And this is not stuff you'll have to fill in. We'll be able to know from your ITSM already, so it'll just be a drop down, and all the projects you already have will be available here for your use. Now, in terms of third-party application provisioning and deprovisioning, here are all the ones we currently natively integrate with. This list is continuing to grow with every feature release. If you have a specific interest in certain third-party applications that would be beneficial to you, again, let us know. This list is based off our customer preferences. So if there's something you're interested in, we're interested in knowing that. Now for the Observe page, this really lets you get insight into how Hire2Retire is handling all of your changes, when, what exactly happened. So you can first of all see this overall view of all the changes Hire2Retire has made. However, you can also go more in depth and really find out what happened for a specific employee. So if you want to see what changes were made to Sylvan's account, you can click this icon here, and first thing you'll see is a list of all the information we have about them from your HR system. Next will be what we see in Active Directory. And an interesting thing to point out here is AD is a non-versionable entity, so they don't usually save that previous value, but we do. So you'll be able to see what that previous value used to be, what it is now, and as a result, which security groups were added, removed, or retained. Same with distribution list, security group, Microsoft 365 group, and all of the ones we offered for group memberships. So it really gives you that extra level of transparency, and you don't even need to go to Hire2Retire to see that, because we have this schedule report option. So if you want to have it sent to you every Monday and Thursday at 9 a.m., you can have that scheduled and set automatically to send to you. You can also pipe all of this rich data into your archival or BI with our audit trail feature. So we support AWS 3, MySQL, and Azure Blob, which can help with a lot of audit purposes. And one other thing to point out here is we do have two options for how Hire2Retire runs. Autopilot just means once we get that information from your HR system, we go ahead with all the changes automatically, while supervised mode gives IT a little bit more control. And the way we do that is by showing you any of the changes as requests first, and you can choose whether to approve or deny them. So in that case, you go to this review tab here, and when you select on a specific request, you'll see it looks pretty similar to the Observe page, but the difference is these changes haven't been made yet, and they're waiting on your approval. So a typical time to use supervised mode might just be when you first start out with Hire2Retire, you're so used to manual, and maybe jumping all the way to automated is a bit of a big jump for right now. This is a nice intermediate step. Get used to Hire2Retire, everything we're doing, and when you feel more comfortable, you can always jump to autopilot at your leisure. And one last step to show here is the Reconcile tab. What it essentially does is it adds one extra layer of transparency so that you can see every time that we're getting information from your HR system, whether or not a change was made. So if no changes were made, you might not see anything on the Observe page, but you will be able to go here and see the last time information was dropped into Hire2Retire, and if any changes were made, what those are. So that was a very quick and general overview of what we do offer with Hire2Retire. There are definitely a lot of features we haven't covered. If you do have interest in seeing a specific use case or something you do right now, you just want to see if RoboMQ can handle that and Hire2Retire, feel free to ask now, or no problem, you can always reach out to us afterwards by email, and we're happy to set up a demo where we can go over your specific HR system, your specific AD setup, and walk you through your use cases, how we would manage that on Hire2Retire, and if it's a good fit for you. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing. Okay, that's about it for now. Other than that, thank you guys so much for your time today to spend a little bit of your Friday here on our Hire2Retire webinar this May. Again, like you mentioned, you'll be getting a recording, so you can really scroll through this at your leisure, as well as information on contacts and how you can reach us in case you really do want to get a look into what Hire2Retire would look like for you. Thank you all again so much for your time, and have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you.